Burns will be out here practice. The other guys we won't practice. Give them up to game time or see where they are after practice today. The 3 guys that haven't practiced.
What about DJ Davidson? He practices.
He'll be okay.
Where's Graham at in his progression? You feel confident that you'll have him healthy enough to practice on Sunday?
Yeah, he's done.
Nothing happens.
Yeah, he's done a good job. We'll see. We'll see after practice here how it is.
Will you still consider? I don't know how it works. If you need the other 2 elevations for other guys, but will you consider having Koo elevated so you have a backup kicker in the game?
Yeah, I'll see where he's at after practice and what the trainers think and what Graham thinks and how he feels. So we'll see where we're at with that.
How do you feel about that, having 2 kickers, the possibility, the whole philosophy of using a roster spot for somebody that's sort of like a contingency?
Yeah, I think if we need to do it, we'll do it. And if Graham is good to go and feels comfortable and the medical staff feels comfortable with it, then we won't.
Do you change anything with Graham's week, like preparation or whatever, just to keep him healthy, make sure he stays healthy?
He's done this a long time. I understand he's had a few injuries. He's done a good job these last couple days, and he'll go out there today, and we'll see how he feels after. But he's a pro. I think he feels good, but we'll go ahead and make the right decision for our team.
Keep JMU in kickoffs just to have one less thing on Graham's plate?
Yeah, I think we could do that. I think we could do both. But again, we'll see where he's at after.
Every time I ask about the tackles, everybody groups the whole offensive line together. But just specifically Andrew and Illuminor, the combination they've given you that maybe on the edges the Giants haven't had in quite some time, and how much you think that is responsible for Dart being as comfortable as he is.
Well, I think it's right to group them all together, Ryan, and the line would be the first to say that, as everybody else would. It's a collective unit. Those guys have done a nice job, but it takes all 11. It takes throwing on time, eluding guys, all those type of things. But they've been true pros for us. They've done a nice job. It's good to have both of them, but it's a collective that you got to play in unison, and the offensive line takes all 5 guys.
I mean, you've lived to his point about the edges. I mean, you've lived where you guys are it's a rotating spot, left tackle, right tackle, with everything you've gone through and what that does to an offense. So just from a consistency perspective to help the line, but also the entire offense, to have that as stable as you have it now, I gotta imagine it's one of those things where it's like, all right, let's go do what we want to do instead of how are we gonna figure this out.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you can have your best guys out there and working together in unison for multiple games, that always helps.
How has that helped Jackson specifically, just a rookie quarterback in that environment?
Yeah, sure. I think it's helped the whole offense. It starts up front. They've done a nice job, but the receivers have done a nice job. The tight ends, it's all. Protection is about all 11 people being where you're supposed to be, throwing the ball on time, running backs in protection. So it's a collective thing, but those guys are doing a nice job for us, our offensive line, and we're going to need them to continue to do that.
Does it require a big shift defensively if you don't have Holland and Adebo? Because it seemed like when you didn't have Holland and Adebo, defensively is when last game went haywire.
Yeah, it's 50% of your secondary if you're playing in base, and 40% if you're playing in sub. So those guys are obviously important to us. Again, we'll see where they're at here after practice.
How much does it change? Not just some next man up, but like you use Adebo obviously as a guy who travels with other teams number 1. Like, does that you have to step back and just totally reassess?
Yeah. If you have to have alternative plans if a guy can't go, and make sure that you're trying to put your guys in the best position. And then it falls on them too to go out there and execute at a high level. It happens, at every position. Malik and Slayton are down. The next 2 perimeter receivers got to be ready to go. So, all the guys that are behind those guys that are practicing in their spots have to be ready to go.
Where is Deontay at confidence-wise? Dave's obviously, he lost some playing time when you guys went with Flott. Now you're going to count on him to step back in, I would assume.
Yeah, so he's worked the way he needs to work this week in the meetings on the practice field, and we'll have confidence in Deontay.
You mentioned Slayton. How much is he back at basically full full strength at this point in practice all week?
Yeah, I'd say he's had 2 good days. So hopefully he'll be ready to roll.
Schmitz go back to starting center.
Yeah, he cleared. Yep.
How much do you expect to see a different version of the Eagles this time around? Obviously, they saw you the first time, you beat them. They're getting 2 obviously very key defensive players back in this game. So I'm considering Mitchell having not played most of that game. How much do you expect it to be a different version of what you saw on the field in the first game?
Yeah, I mean they have a number of things they do defensively. So whatever that is, just like every other game. I know it's a close game, but just like every other game, you got to figure out what they're doing. And if they're doing one thing, then you go to another thing. It's just that's how it works. So 2 good players, like you said, that are coming back. I would say very good players. That always makes a difference.
James, when you guys are sitting there and talking about punch, counter punch, adjusting, Jackson's talked a lot about, well, they'll do one thing, we'll go to the sideline, we'll change it. How deep in the rabbit hole do you go to try to set up your counters before the game? And is it really okay, remember this, we have this in the playbook, but it wasn't in our practice, that kind of element of how much is it in the moment, but how much are you prepared?
Yeah, I'd say it's both, Art. So you definitely do that during the week of, whether it's formations, motion, plays that you can set up or see how the defense is playing. So if they're strong in one area, they're weak in another area relative to the coverage scheme or fronts, how you can get that the way you need to have it. And it's not always easy. And you're always, usually after the first series, you're talking about it and you're making, hey, let's see if they go to this the next series. If they do that, then that's probably the way it looks. But it happens throughout the game. It's, we've talked about this number. It's just not wait till halftime. The coaches are constantly talking and communicating with the players, and the players are communicating with the coaches.
Is a lot of that on the back end, or how much do you do on the front end from a coaching staff going into this weekend?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. So, look, they can play anything they want on defense. They can do anything they want on offense. You practice things that you think you'll probably see throughout the week, but inevitably there's a bunch of new things that you're going to see. So you have to do a good job of recognizing that, seeing it, whether it's up in the box, on the tablets, getting information from the players, have a good communication process, and then make whatever necessary adjustments you need to make.